My name is Wanda Cloud, 41 years old. People assume the biggest betrayals of your life crash into you like thunder, loud, violent, impossible to miss. But the truth is, the most devastating ones arrive quietly. They start as small shifts in tone, tiny moments you brush off, little instinctive flinches you ignore because the alternative is too painful to consider. Looking back now, I can see exactly where the cracks began, but at the time, I was blind. Or maybe I just desperately wanted to be. 6 years into my marriage with Ryan, I genuinely believed we were solid. We weren't perfect. No couple is. But we had weathered enough storms together that I thought nothing could shake us. We had our patterns, our rhythms, Saturday morning coffee runs, long conversations on the couch about everything and nothing, a life we'd built piece by piece. And for me, that meant something. I didn't come from a stable home, not in the emotional sense. I grew up overshadowed by my younger sister, Star, whose very existence seemed to light up my parents' world. My mother, Gina, always claimed she loved us equally, but affection doesn't lie. Every choice, every comparison, every punishment made one thing painfully clear. Star was the daughter they cherished, and I was extra, an accessory, a backup. When I turned 16, I was given an 8-year-old Dodge Neon that stuttered anytime I drove uphill. I was grateful because I didn't expect more. But when Star turned 16, she received a shiny 2-year-old Mitsubishi Eclipse with a bow on top. I can still remember the way Mom gushed over it, how Dad kept announcing the horsepower as if he personally built it. I stood on the porch, clapping and smiling because that's what a good daughter was supposed to do. That set the tone for our entire childhood. Star got expensive dance classes, costumes, competitions across the state. I got the chance to beg for $50 to attend a local college's volleyball camp, an amount that apparently required a lengthy discussion about finances. When I was 17 and arrived home 15 minutes past curfew, they took my car for a month. The next year, Star came home 2 hours late and smelling like pot. She got a gentle, almost affectionate lecture about better decisions. So no, Star and I were never close. Not out of hatred, just out of survival. When she left for college in Florida at 18 and stayed there afterward, the distance between us widened, but things felt calmer, more manageable. Holidays together were brief and polite. I didn't love her, but I didn't resent her either. She was my sister, but she was also a stranger who happened to share my blood. That all changed 8 months ago. Star was dumped by her long-term boyfriend under circumstances she described in a dramatic, wounded whisper. He cheated on me with men. It sounded like something she pulled straight from a soap opera, but I didn't know him well enough to challenge it. I'd met him 3 times. He was quiet, polite, and almost painfully ordinary. Nothing like the secret double-life villain she made him out to be. Still, when she packed up her Florida apartment and came back home to Missouri, I felt a pull to help her. Maybe I thought it was a shot at finally having some semblance of a sisterly bond. She moved back in with our parents, struggled for a month to find work, and I, like an idiot, asked Ryan if he could help. He was high up at his company, and I assumed naively that this would be a simple act of kindness. He managed to get her a job in his department, something in her field. And that was when everything began to shift. At first, I thought it was nice that she came around more. She'd stop by for dinner, linger in the kitchen while I cooked, make jokes about how she missed real food. But gradually, the atmosphere changed. I'd walk into the living room and find her and Ryan deep in conversation, laughing at something I wasn't part of. Inside jokes, little comments like, "Oh, that's a work thing, you wouldn't get it." Harmless on the surface, poisonous underneath. Then came the schedule overlap. Ryan worked 8 to 4:30. I worked 10 to 7. Suddenly, it seemed like every time I came home, Star was already there. Not for me, for him. They'd claim they had work stuff to finish, but there was something in the way they said it, something in the air between them, a familiar ease, a shared world I was growing increasingly shut out from. Still, I tried to be rational. This was my husband, my sister. Surely I was imagining it. Then the moment that made my stomach twist, the pillowcases. I make the bed every morning before leaving for work. It's a habit, a small ritual of order and control. I always arrange the pillows so the open ends of the pillowcases face outward. That night, after Star had been over, I walked into our bedroom and froze. 2 pillows were flipped, open ends facing inward, different from how I made them. I asked Ryan, "Did you come into the bed today?" His reaction was so small most people would have missed it. A flinch, a flicker of panic. Then he composed himself. "No, why would I?" I pointed at the pillows. He shrugged. "You must be remembering wrong." But I wasn't. I am many things, but disorganized isn't one of them. I checked his phone that night. His laptop. Nothing incriminating. But why would there be? They worked together 8 hours a day and then hung out after work. Why would they need to text? I started feeling crazy. And then, the moment that shattered the illusion. My parents invited us over for dinner. Harmless enough. We were all in the living room, chatting. Ryan walked by Star, and she reached out, soft, delicate, grabbed his arm, pulled him close enough to whisper. And then they touched foreheads. Just for a second. But in that second, I felt my world tilt. Ryan jerked away, pretending nothing happened. Star looked at me, slowly, deliberately, and smiled. A small, smug curl of her lips before she turned back to her plate. I went cold. That was when I realized something was terribly, tragically wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but denial has limits. So I planned a weekend getaway, hoping a quiet moment away from home would give me the courage to confront the truth. I remember thinking, either I'm paranoid or my life is about to be destroyed. The weekend getaway was supposed to feel like a reset, a chance to breathe, to find clarity. I booked us a hotel suite in the city, a place we'd stayed at once, years earlier, back when we were still in our honeymoon phase, when everything felt easy and warm. I hoped some part of that magic still lingered between the walls. When we walked into the room, soft light spilling out from the fixtures, Ryan smiled, a gentle, nostalgic smile. He had no idea what I was planning to ask, and for a few hours, I let myself pretend. We ordered drinks, got dressed up, and went out dancing. His hand on my waist felt as familiar as my own heartbeat. When he pulled me close during slow songs, I let myself melt into him. I let myself believe that what I'd seen, what I felt, was just paranoia, old insecurity resurfacing. We went back to the hotel, tipsy and playful. We were intimate. We kissed like we hadn't kissed in months. For a moment I thought, how could a man touch me like this and be touching someone else? The doubt, the fear, the panic, they all quieted. Until the next morning. There's something about mornings. The light comes in differently. You see things you tried to ignore in the dark. We were getting ready to go out for brunch, and my chest felt hollow, like I was living inside a question mark. My hands trembled as I put on mascara. I kept telling myself, ask him, ask him, ask him. But my voice wouldn't come. My throat felt tight. He was tying his shoes when it finally burst out of me. Are you having an affair with my sister? The words cracked the air like glass shattering. Ryan froze. His fingers went still on the laces. He didn't even look at me at first. When he did, his eyes were watery, wide, terrified. And then, he didn't deny it. He didn't say no. He didn't laugh. He didn't defend himself. He just looked broken. And then he whispered, yes. I felt something inside me tear so violently I swear I heard it. My breath left my body. I sat down because my legs couldn't hold me. How long? I asked, though I already knew. A few months, he said quietly. It just happened. We clicked. We were spending time together at work. And then what? My voice was shaking, but sharp. And then you kissed? And then you decided my sister was the better option? He winced. Wanda, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. What does that even mean, Ryan? I snapped. Affairs don't just happen. Car accidents happen. Spilling coffee happens. Sleeping with my sister doesn't just happen. He looked like he wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't form. Then the question that had been gnawing at my spine. Did you sleep with her in our bed? He closed his eyes. That was answer enough. I stood up, grabbed my purse, walked out the door. I didn't care that my phone charger, my makeup bag, my clothes were still in the room. I didn't care that he was calling my name. I didn't care about any of it. I walked through the hotel hallway numb. I drove home in a blurry fog of lights and tears. I cried until my chest hurt, until my shirt was soaked, until my voice was raw. I kept hearing his confession on a loop. I kept seeing Star's smug smile at dinner. I kept thinking, how stupid was I? How blind? Hours later, Ryan took an Uber home. He showed up with the rest of my things neatly stacked in his arms like some kind of peace offering. He kept saying, I'm sorry, please look at me, please. But I couldn't. If I looked at him, I'd collapse. He packed a bag while I stood there silent, trembling. and then he left for a hotel. The next day I told my parents. They already knew. Mom sat at the kitchen table, stirring her coffee like we were discussing the weather. "We're really sorry this happened, Wanda," she said, "but Star left last night. She feels awful. She might not be back for a few days." I stared at her, waiting for outrage, for shock, for any sign that she understood the gravity of what just happened. Nothing. Dad just sat there, hands folded, eyes down. "You knew," I said quietly, "and you said nothing to me." Mom sighed, as if I was being overly dramatic. "We didn't want to interfere. Things happen between adults. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, my voice climbing. "My husband cheated on me with your other daughter." She shrugged. "Your sister deserves to be happy too, Wanda. You'll meet someone else eventually, and then we can all put this behind us." I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. Put it behind us? You want me to pretend this never happened? Mom took a sip of her coffee. "Social media only makes things worse anyway," she said vaguely. "You shouldn't be on that stuff." That's when I told them about the Facebook tag, the selfie of Star and Ryan, him kissing her cheek, captioned, "Feeling loved." Mom barely blinked. "You shouldn't let things like that affect you." Dad finally spoke monotone. "I agree with your mother." And that was it. That was the entire extent of their concern. I left their house shaking. My hands were cold, my chest burning. 3 months later, the divorce was almost final. Ryan found an apartment immediately. Star moved in with him. We only communicated through lawyers. Ryan initially tried to give me the house and the savings, guilt-talking, but within days backpedaled. "We should split the house," he said. "Be fair." Fair. Funny how fairness only mattered once Star sank her claws in. I had already moved the savings into a new account. He never even realized until later. Star? She didn't stop at betrayal. She wanted humiliation. A few days after everything came out, she tagged me on Facebook again, a picture of them kissing in a sunflower field. I didn't even read the caption. I deleted the app, logged out of everything. An hour later, she texted, "Sorry, sis, didn't mean to tag you, no hard feelings. You'll meet your soulmate someday, too." I blocked her. I blocked everyone. Mom tried to insist we were family and needed to move on. Dad hid behind her as always. That was when I decided I was done. I sold the house, packed my life, moved to a different state. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't want them to ever find me again. And for a long time, they didn't. But betrayal has a way of echoing long after the moment it happens. I thought leaving was the end. I was wrong. It was only the beginning. The first year after I left Missouri felt like walking through fog. Cold, dense, and endless. I moved to Minnesota because it was far enough that no one could accidentally drop by, but close enough that I could still feel like I lived on the same planet. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment with creaky floors and chipped cabinets, but it had sunlight in the mornings. After everything I'd been through, sunlight felt like luxury. I tried dating too soon. Everyone in recovery does something stupid the first year, and that was mine. I went on a date with a man who seemed normal at first. Clean shirt, decent job, smelled like soap instead of cologne. 5 minutes into dinner, he spent the entire time complaining that his last girlfriend blocked him for no reason, then interrogated me about my availability. I realized I was still broken inside. My heart felt like a cracked windshield, intact enough to see through, but too damaged to trust. I didn't try dating again for a long time. Instead, I went to therapy. Twice a week at first. I told my therapist every ugly detail. The affair, the pillowcases, the smug look on Star's face, the way my mother dismissed my pain like it was a minor inconvenience. I cried through half our sessions, shook through the other half. Healing felt like ripping out shattered glass one piece at a time. But slowly, something inside me softened. I stopped waking up with my heart racing. I stopped blaming myself for being betrayed. And then, once the dust settled, something unexpected happened. I met James. It was at a local food festival in downtown Minneapolis. He was manning a booth for a restaurant he co-owned with his fraternal twin brother, Jack. I only stopped because the food smelled amazing and the line was short. I didn't expect anything beyond a quick meal. When I reached the counter, James greeted me with a warm, open smile that didn't feel forced or salesy, just kind. His dark hair was tied back loosely, his apron dusted with flour, and he had laugh lines, real ones, earned from years of smiling without restraint. "You look undecided," he said gently. "Do you want something comforting or something adventurous?" "Both," I admitted. "Perfect," he said. "I know exactly what you need." It was such a simple interaction, but when he handed me the plate, his fingers brushed mine lightly, just enough to make me feel seen. I came back the next day, and the next. Eventually, he asked if I wanted to sit at the bar while he prepped for dinner service. I said yes. Those small, slow evenings felt like rebuilding from the inside out. He'd tell me stories about running a restaurant with his twin brother, how they fought constantly over menu items but agreed on everything that mattered. Their staff was mostly extended family, and the restaurant had this loud, warm, chaotic energy that felt foreign to me. They argued, but they loved each other. They disagreed, but they respected each other. They teased each other, but they'd go to war for one another. I realized I'd never experienced that kind of love growing up. Not once. I didn't tell James my full history at first. I was embarrassed, ashamed that I had let myself be destroyed by the people who should have protected me. But the day I finally broke down and told him everything, from my childhood to the affair to the divorce, he didn't interrupt. He didn't pity me. He didn't rush to offer advice. He just listened. And then he said, "Wanda, you didn't deserve any of that, but you deserve everything good that comes next." That was the moment I realized I could love again, that I wanted to. 3 years after moving to Minnesota, James proposed during a quiet dinner at the restaurant before closing time. No audience, no spectacle. Just a candle, a warm plate of pasta, and a ring he nervously kept checking in his pocket like it might escape. For the first time in my life, saying yes felt easy. But the universe has a sick sense of timing. It happened about 9 months after I left Missouri, before I met James, even before therapy had finished peeling away the layers of grief. One day, I came home from work and found a wedding invitation in my mail. Ryan and Star. An engagement photo printed on glossy paper, Ryan hugging her from behind, both smiling in a sunflower field. The audacity of it nearly knocked the breath out of me. But the invitation wasn't the worst part. There was a letter from my parents. A long, rambling, sanctimonious plea about family healing, forgiveness, and, God help me, putting the past behind us. They even claimed Star wanted me to be a bridesmaid, just like she was for you, conveniently ignoring the reason the wedding I had once planned never happened. I couldn't breathe for a full minute. The letter reopened every wound therapy had barely begun to stitch closed. I didn't respond, not out of strength, but because I knew anything I said would come out drenched in anger. Instead, I quietly cut off the extended family member who gave them my address. No explanations, no goodbye message. I disappeared again. Years passed. I built a life, a real one. Not a patchwork of survival instincts like before. I had a fiancé, a new job, friends, and a chosen family through James. I wasn't healed completely. No one ever is. But the hole in my chest wasn't hollow anymore. It was filled. Then one evening, everything tilted once again. I came home to my apartment and found a man standing in the hallway outside my door. Ryan. He looked different, cleaner, sharper, more polished, like he'd dressed up specifically for this. His expression was strange, too, not remorseful, not angry, almost hopeful. "Wanda," he said softly, "I just want to talk." My stomach tightened. I told him he shouldn't be here. He said he knew, but needed to apologize, needed closure, needed me to understand Star had cheated on him their whole marriage. The irony was so sharp it almost tasted metallic. He said they were divorcing. He said he didn't expect me to take him back, which meant he absolutely did. He said he wanted us to talk because we were important. I stared at him and realized something. I didn't hate him anymore. I just didn't care. "You made your bed," I said coldly. "Lie in it." Then I told him the line that had been brewing in my bones for years. "You really thought Star, who has had more visitors than a highway rest stop, was suddenly going to settle down because you gave her a ring. You're even dumber than I thought." I walked inside and locked the door. Then I called my landlady, a sweet older woman who knew the basics of my past. Within minutes, her nephews, 2 huge men with zero patience for nonsense, escorted Ryan out of the building and told him he'd be charged with trespassing if he returned. I thought that was the end of it, but the past rarely leaves that quietly. The next night, I went to James's restaurant after work. I sat at the bar like I always did, sipping iced tea, trading jokes with the staff. Then the door opened, and Ryan walked in again. He walked straight to my table and sat down. James spotted him immediately and approached, shoulders squared. "Want me to kick him out?" he murmured to me. "Not yet," I said, eyes fixed on Ryan. "I have a question or two." Because in that moment, I wasn't scared. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't broken. I wanted answers. Ryan straightened up, almost like he thought he was winning something. What a fool. Ryan sat across from me, like he thought this was some kind of reunion. The restaurant was unusually quiet, a slow Tuesday, soft jazz humming in the background, the glow from the hanging lights casting warm halos on the tables. But the moment he appeared, the air thickened, like the whole room inhaled and forgot how to exhale. I folded my hands on the table and said calmly, "Start talking." He lifted his chin, trying to look composed, but the way his fingers tapped the table betrayed his nerves. "I figured you'd want to know the truth about what happened with Star." I kept my face expressionless. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of thinking I cared. "Go on," he swallowed. "She was cheating on me." No shock, not even a ripple. If anything, I felt a grim sense of inevitability, like watching a train finally hit the wall everyone knew was coming. "With who?" I asked. He hesitated. "Multiple people, 2 married men, maybe more." I blinked slowly. "Old habits really don't die, do they?" He flinched. "She started 2 years into our marriage," he continued, voice brittle. "It was devastating." I almost laughed. Devastating, as if he had any right to claim devastation in front of me. "And you stayed?" I asked. "Yes," he said, straightening as if proud of himself. "I stayed almost another year so I could start setting aside savings. I sold some assets, made sure most things were in my name. So when I finally filed for divorce, she got a lot less than she would have." There it was, that smug little smirk, like he expected me to congratulate him. "So she devastated you," I said dryly, "and your takeaway is that you outsmarted her financially?" His smirk faded. "It's not like that." "Isn't it?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, she's been going through a lot. Things fell apart. She had to move back in with your parents." That caught my attention, a quiet surge of satisfaction unfurling in my chest. "Back home?" I repeated. "In their house again?" "Yes." He rubbed his temples. "They're having a hard time. Your mom worries constantly. Your dad's stressed." I held up a hand. "Stop. I didn't ask how they feel. I asked a factual question, and you answered it." I leaned back, letting the moment settle like dust after a collapsed building. "So she's back living with my parents," I murmured. "Good." Ryan blinked. "Good?" A slow, razor-edged smile curled at my lips. "Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You can go now." He stared at me, stunned, as if this wasn't the script he had rehearsed. "Wanda, wait!" I cut him off with a single glance sharp enough to slice through him. "No forgiveness, no closure, no anything. You don't get that from me. Now leave." Before he could respond, James stepped forward, an unspoken storm in his stance. He planted himself beside me like a shield. "You heard her," he said quietly. "Out." Ryan looked around, suddenly aware of the glares from the staff. 2 servers and the bartender all staring like they were ready to drag him out themselves. He cleared his throat, stood up, and forced out, "Fine." He walked out stiffly, tail tucked in the way only men with too much ego and too little dignity do. James waited until the door closed behind him before turning to me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though my pulse was still drumming. "Just relieved," I admitted. "I wanted that confirmation for years." He squeezed my shoulder, warm and steady. "You're safe now." I believed him, but life wasn't done testing me. Years passed. I married James. We had 2 sons, 6 and 2 years old now, both with his soft brown eyes and my stubborn jawline. They were loud, messy, emotional little firecrackers who could reduce me to laughter or exhaustion in seconds. And I loved them with a ferocity I didn't even know I was capable of. We worked out a rhythm. James ran the kitchens, Jack handled most of the business side, and I became a part-time office manager for both restaurant locations. I loved the job. I loved being part of a community that felt alive. I loved being surrounded by James's family, people who knew how to disagree, argue, tease, apologize, hug, people who didn't weaponize love. Sometimes when James's parents joked that my boys were the grandchildren they'd been waiting for, I'd feel this ache in my chest, a mixture of gratitude and grief. I had found the family I always wished I was born into. And then my past came clawing back. It started with a message request on social media from someone I didn't recognize. I ignored it. Another came, then another. Eventually, I opened one, and it was my mother. She apologized vaguely, like someone offering condolences for a bad haircut. Then she asked how her grandson was doing. My skin prickled with heat. I typed back, "You have no grandchildren. I am not your daughter. If you want grandchildren, encourage Star to get out there and do what she does best. Then I blocked her. She came back under new accounts. Again and again. I blocked them all. A few weeks later, the messages multiplied. Not just from her, my father, distant cousins, neighbors I hadn't spoken to since high school. They all had variations of the same plea. We miss you. We want to reconnect. Family is important. Life is short. I deleted them without reading fully. But then something I didn't expect happened. Star messaged me. At first it was generic. Wanda, please talk to me. We need to speak. It's important. I ignored everything, but she didn't stop. Finally, after 3 weeks of constant attempts, I agreed to a Zoom call, with one condition. No kids around, not even in the background. I wasn't giving them a single pixel of my sons. When the call connected, I nearly didn't recognize them. My parents looked older, grayer, worn down like fabric rubbed too thin. But Star, she looked sick. Not just unwell, sick. Her cheeks were sunken, her eyes shadowed, her skin dull. For a moment, I felt something unexpectedly human, but I stayed still, detached. Mom started the performance immediately. Wanda, sweetheart, we're so happy to see you. We want our family back. My father nodded, wringing his hands like a guilty priest. Star's voice was soft, fragile. I'm sorry for everything, she murmured. I miss you. I stared at them all, my face a mask. That's all very touching, I finally said. But why are you really here? The facade cracked like thin ice. Mom inhaled sharply, then exhaled with a tremor. Wanda, your sister is sick. Her kidneys are failing. She needs a transplant. There it was. The real reason. The only reason. Dad leaned in. The doctors said a family member is her best chance. And since your blood types match, Mom added. My pulse went cold. So you want my kidney? I asked. Star's lips trembled. Please, I don't want to die. And while you're at it, Dad added, clearing his throat, we could use some help. The medical bills, the house, it's a lot. So that was the package deal. My kidney, my money, my forgiveness, my return to being the sacrificial lamb of the Cloud family. I stared at them in silence. Finally, I said, I'll think about it, and I'll get tested here. They cried tears of relief, but I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it because something inside me needed to see this through, to the very end. A week later, the results came in. I was a perfect match, the only person who could save Star. So I booked a flight back to Missouri, my first time in years. As I packed my bags, James asked quietly, Do you want me to come with you? I shook my head. No, this is something I have to do alone. But even then, even before the plane took off, I already knew what they didn't. I wasn't going there to save anyone. I was going there to end this story once and for all. When the plane touched down in Missouri, my stomach knotted so tightly I thought I might get sick. It had been years since I last saw my hometown, years since I'd driven those roads, heard those accents, smelled that humid Midwest air. The airport looked exactly the same, yet somehow smaller, dimmer. Or maybe I'd simply outgrown it. I rented a car and drove straight to the hospital. My parents wanted me to meet them for dinner first, but I'd made it very clear I wasn't here for reunions or sentiment. I wasn't here for hugs. I wasn't here to reconnect. I was here for one thing, and it wasn't what they hoped. Star had already been admitted. When I arrived at the hospital, the nurse at the front desk led me down a long hallway, the smell of antiseptic hanging thick in the air. My shoes echoed against the tiles with each step, and I couldn't help feeling like I was walking toward some final reckoning, one I had waited for my whole life. Star's room was dim, a soft beeping from the monitor the only sound. She lay in the bed looking small, pale, and fragile. Her once perfect hair was frizzy and limp. Her trademark sparkle, cocky, smug, superior, was gone. In its place was a hollow, frightened woman who suddenly seemed younger than me, not the sister who'd always been propped up on a golden pedestal. Her eyes flicked open. Wanda, she whispered. Not sis, not hey, just my name, tentative and trembling. Before she could say more, my parents swept in behind me like a gust of anxious wind. Mom rushed forward. Thank God you're here, she breathed, clutching my arms as if we were long-lost friends. We knew you'd come. We knew you'd do the right thing. Dad nodded stiffly, hands shoved into his pockets. This means everything. I disentangled myself from my mother's grip and stepped back. Let's wait for the doctors, I said coolly. I want everyone present. Mom blinked, thrown off by my tone. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Star bit her lip. A doctor and a nurse arrived shortly, charts in hand. The doctor, a tall, calm man with tired eyes, began explaining Star's condition using words like rapid decline, limited window, and urgent need. He stated bluntly that Star had 6 months without a transplant, maybe less. He turned to me, voice warm with the kind of compassion that comes from years of repeating bad news. The match results from Minnesota were remarkable, Ms. Cloud. Sibling matches aren't always this close. You're essentially a medically ideal donor. My parents looked at me with wet-eyed relief. Mom squeezed my hand. See, sweetheart, it's meant to be. Dad exhaled shakily. We can schedule the surgery as soon as... Stop! My voice cut across the room, startling everyone. I stepped closer to Star's bed. Her breath caught. She stared at me with a mix of hope and terror. Star, I said softly, did you hear what the doctor just said? She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. You're perfect. You can save me. The doctor smiled encouragingly. It's extremely fortunate, Ms. Cloud. The odds of finding a more compatible donor... I'm not going to do it. Silence. Total absolute silence. Then, what? Star whispered, confusion curdling into fear. Mom lurched forward. Wanda, don't be ridiculous. You can't say something like that. I can, I said quietly, and I just did. Dad's face hardened. This isn't the time for whatever this is. Your sister is dying. I looked straight at him. She's been killing me for years. Star's chin quivered. Wanda, please, I know I hurt you. I know I was awful, but this is my life. Exactly, I replied. Your life, your choices, your consequences. I stepped right beside her bed, looking down into eyes identical to mine, except hers held panic instead of resolve. The man you slept with behind my back for months, I said softly. The marriage you destroyed. The years you mocked my pain. The Facebook post. The no hard feelings sis text. The wedding invitation you sent me after blowing up my marriage. Her tears spread faster now. I'm sorry. No, I said. You're scared. That's different. Mom snapped, her voice sharp as broken glass. Wanda Cloud, you listen to me. I turned on her, something fierce igniting in my chest. Don't you dare pretend you're entitled to my body the way you felt entitled to my compliance all my life. Mom's nostrils flared. We are family. Families forgive. Families look out for each other. You looked out for one child, I said, and it wasn't me. Dad stepped forward. We need your help. We'll lose the house. I held up a hand. There it is. The real agenda. You don't just want my kidney, you want my money too. He froze. Mom shook her head vehemently. That's exactly how it is, I said. You want me to bleed for a family that would watch me drown. The doctor and nurse stood frozen, caught between medical professionalism and total shock. I turned back to Star, my voice steady as bedrock. I came here so you would know this. The one person who could save you is the one person you treated like garbage, and now you're paying the price for it. She sobbed openly. I don't want to die. I didn't want my marriage to die, I replied, but you didn't care. I straightened, heart pounding but sure. I won't donate. I won't help. I won't come back. You will never see my children. You will never meet my husband. You will never be part of my life again. Mom broke then, her face twisting, voice cracking. How can you be this cruel? I looked at her with the coldest clarity I'd ever felt. I learned from the best. Dad opened his mouth, shut it, opened it again, trembling with frustration. Get out, Mom whispered. Get out of this room. I was already leaving, I said. But let me add one thing. I looked at both of them, truly looked. The only money I would spend on you would be for your funerals. And even then, I'd require your ashes be returned to me so I could flush them in the dirtiest toilet I can find. Gasps, shock, rage. I walked out before any of them could respond. Down the hallway, through the automatic doors, out into the warm Missouri air. I didn't look back. Not once. When I got off the plane back in Minnesota, James was waiting at the gate. He pulled me into his arms without asking a single question. I stayed there, breathing him in, feeling the safety of his chest against mine. Later that night, after the boys were asleep and the kitchen lights glowed softly, I told him everything. He listened the way he always did, quietly, with love strong enough that I felt it in my bones. And when I finished, he took my hands and said, You protected your peace. That's not cruel. That's survival. I nodded, though part of me knew the decision would always sit heavy in my chest, not regret, but the weight of choosing myself after a lifetime of being asked to sacrifice. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I wonder if Star is still alive. But the thought passes quickly, replaced by the sound of my sons laughing, the sight of James cooking for us, the warmth of a home filled with love, not obligation. I didn't save her. I saved myself. And I'd make the same choice every time.